Okay, so we have a lot to cover, so we're going to go ahead and get started. Welcome again to Learning Ally's webinar, Internships, How to Find, Secure, and Succeed During a Pandemic. My name is Katie Otaggio. I am the CSP Engagement Operations Manager at Learning Ally, which basically means that I just work on all outreach and communications for the College Success Program. I am a white woman with shoulder-length brown hair. I'm wearing a tan sweater and brown glasses. I'm going to pass you over to my colleague, Abigail, who's going to go over some housekeeping items.
Thanks, Katie. Hi, everybody. My name is Abigail Shaw. I am a white woman with brown hair. It's pulled back today. I'm wearing a red long sleeve shirt. And we're really glad to have you. Just to provide some orientation for how our webinar will work today is that our moderator and panelists are going to have a discussion on our topic about internships and how to find them, secure them, and navigate internships during a pandemic. And then closer to 15 or 10 minutes before the hour, we will open it up for Q&A. So if you have questions, you're welcome to put them in the chat before then, and we will address them later. Or at the Q&A time, you can come off mute. We'll ask people to raise their hands, and I'll explain how to access those features when we get to that part of the program. So back to you, Katie, for introductions.
Great, thanks, Abigail. So just to introduce you to who we're going to be hearing from today, first is Dezman Jackson. He is a CSP mentor and is our moderator today. Dezman has a BA in psychology from Auburn University and an MA in industrial organizational psychology with a concentration in orientation and mobility from Louisiana Tech University. Blind from an early age due to cataracts and glaucoma, Dezman grew up in a small town near Mobile, Alabama. As a youngster, Dezman knew that he would have to overcome obstacles in life, mainly imposed by those who held low expectations about blindness. He would eventually have an opportunity to raise expectations and inspire independence by gaining certification in orientation and mobility. He then went on to work in the adjustment to blindness field for several years, teaching O&M along with other skills. He spent most of that part of his career at Blind Industries and Services of Maryland and Baltimore, where he now lives. He also enjoys the power of technology and access to information and now works as an accessibility engineer for TPG Interactive, a division of Vispero. He especially has a passion for empowering young people. In his spare time, Dezman enjoys reading, podcasts, and playing his saxophone, and is active in his church. He has also become conscious of the benefits of a healthy lifestyle and has a long-term goal of becoming a health and wellness coach. Next is Kerrie Hannen. Kerrie Hannen graduated from the College of New Jersey with a bachelor's degree in sociology and a master's degree in special education. She began her career as a special education teacher in East Brunswick Public Schools, but she quickly realized her passion lay outside the school system. Kerrie now works for the Family Resource Network, a nonprofit agency, as Director of Programs and Services. Her role is to support people with disabilities in finding employment and participating in meaningful, community-based experiences. She supervises FRN's pre-employment transition services and supported employment programs and works with employers throughout New Jersey to develop inclusive job opportunities and partnerships. And next we have Khadija Bari. Khadija is the Student Career Coordinator in the Workforce Development Department at Visions Services for the Blind and Visually Impaired. She is also a trained speaker and a member of the Board of Advisors with Respectability. Khadija earned her master's in economics from Hunter College of the City University of New York. She then began her career at Queens College of the City University of New York, working with first-generation college students in their learning in freshman and sophomore algebra and calculus courses. The next step in her career advancement led her to Visions, switching her focus to the professional development of college students and job seekers with visual impairments and other disabilities, and she partners with companies to foster inclusivity in their workplaces. And with that, I will hand it over to Dezman to get us started. Dezman? Dezman, I believe you're on mute.
Oh, sorry, can I be heard?
Yes.
All right. Well, thank you all again for coming out, and I think this will be a very informative webinar. And I want to thank Katie, Kristen, and Abigail for inviting me to be a part of interviewing our awesome panelists. And so with that, the way it's going to work is I have a series of questions that I will ask Kerrie and Khadija, and they each have a couple minutes to speak on those questions. And that's kind of how the flow of things will work this evening. All right. So first question is, why is a paid or unpaid internship so important? And let's see, I don't know. I got my virtual hat. Let me mix the names around. We'll start with Kerrie to start off answering this question.
Hi, everyone. I'm so excited to be here today. And I see a few familiar Edge faces in the crowd, so that makes me even more excited. So this is a great first question. Why are internships so important? A lot of students don't realize the importance of having a summer internship, but they help you strengthen your professional skills and your aptitudes. They help you understand where your interests lie, especially within a specific field. And they provide a door to new opportunities, growing your network, meeting with your supervisor and other coworkers there. It really helps you to not only understand that job in the workplace itself, but also what different roles you might like to play and who you can call out to later on after your internship in order to look for new opportunities. So it's so important. And honestly, when I was in college, I interned every single summer, every single winter break, and if I could during the semesters as well, because it is that important and it does get you into so many new doors that you might not get to otherwise.
Great. Khadija?
Yep. Hey everyone, this is Khadija. So just a quick description. I am a South Asian woman with medium to deep skin tone, black straight hair, and today I'm wearing a maroon blouse with a round neck. So first of all, I really want to emphasize, I know some students pursue paid opportunities over unpaid ones, but while in college, I strongly encourage students to consider volunteer opportunities just as valuable and just as serious when looking to gain that work experience while still in college. So I absolutely agree with Kerrie in that internships are so key in helping you create not just getting the right experience for today, but creating future opportunities. So for example, the way internships can help you not just today, but in the future is they help you build confidence, right? So when you gain experience outside of school, when you gain some work experience, practical experience, you now have the confidence and the ability to talk about things outside of your academics when potentially interviewing for job interviews in the future after you graduate. Similarly, networking is so key, especially now during COVID. It has become an even more crucial part of the internship search process. So when you're on your internship, it's not just an opportunity to do the work and demonstrate your skills, but it's also an opportunity to meet new people, whether that be your manager, your coworkers, whether that be in person or virtually in a Zoom room such as this one. And that network can carry you a long way even after you graduate from college. And most importantly is references. I'm sure you noticed that in internship applications, but even when it comes to job applications, employers ask for references. They ask you to fill out an application. They want to take a look at your resume, but then they also want to hear from the people who have worked alongside with you. So again, internship is a great opportunity to build those references. Again, managers, coworkers, other partners that you could be collaborating with during your internship, depending on what the situation is.
All right, fantastic. I would have to second both of those responses. I can, thinking back to my internship, and I still definitely have connections from those. And, if anything, it gave me an opportunity to gain some skills to take forward in the job market. All right. Well, fantastic. So, Khadija, we'll start with you with this next question. So, how can students locate a volunteer or paid internship opportunity? You may be muted.
Sorry, can you hear me now?
There you are. There you are.
Yeah, I think I didn't have permission to mute for briefly. All right. So places to go look for internships. So power of the internet, right? We use it for so many things on a daily basis, whether that be social media, whether that be for school. Internship search, just as important. Utilize that, google.com. So websites that I generally recommend students to begin with, if they kind of just want to dip their toes into the internship process, is indeed.com. You can filter results there by internships. There's internships.com. There is idealist.org if you're interested in working with a nonprofit. There is Volunteer Match. And likewise, I would say Google now for the last, I think, 2 years has its own search engine. So now, for instance, just in the Google search bar, let's say you type in nursing internship, New York. The first thing that'll come on your Google search results are results that Google has pulled from all different websites pertaining to internships. So that'll be a really good start as well for you to, rather than visit specific websites, you will be able to see results from other websites that maybe you've never even heard of before. Another resource that I feel sometimes students overlook is their own college's career services office. So college career services offices have like their own databases where they post internship and job opportunities. I think it's called like Handshake for some schools. Again, depending on the school that you're going to and the platform that your career services office uses. Definitely do drop by there, whether that be in person or virtually. Email them, schedule an appointment. Another fantastic resource to also go over resumes, cover letters, do any kind of interview prep. And then I would say if you are interested in working with specific organizations, maybe you want to stay local to your community. I would say look up either by cause, like if you're passionate about a specific cause or a mission of an organization, or there's a specific population that you want to work with. Google those organizations in your local community, pick up the phone, call them, and just ask, I would like to volunteer with your organization. Can you connect me to a volunteer coordinator or the volunteer department, or guide me on next steps? So the front desk, whoever answers, should be able to direct you that way as well.
Great. How about you, Kerrie?
So I want to echo something that Khadija had said, and that's don't underestimate the career services department at your school. They can play such an important role, and they already have established relationships with so many different companies and businesses in your local community. So I would not underestimate them, and I would absolutely go on. Handshake is the website that most schools use, so definitely take advantage of that. You can do that independently. You don't even have to talk to someone at the Career Center to look through those opportunities on Handshake on the website. So those are both really great resources. And then just like Khadija said, look up some different companies and agencies in your local area. See which ones are close by and related to those interest areas that you have. It doesn't have to be directly adjacent to your profession. For example, I was a teacher. That doesn't mean that I necessarily in the summertime could have a teaching assistantship or something like that, but I was a summer camp counselor, right? So you find something that's adjacent or closely related that'll give you some of those skills in your future career. But don't be afraid to reach out to employers directly as well. With our agency, the way that we get most of our interns is through direct contacts, people who email our agency directly and say, hey, I'm looking for an internship and your work is what I'm passionate about. So don't be afraid to take a look and see what is in your local area. I would definitely start there first, because sometimes if you start with these bigger companies like Apple or Google or something like that, where you want to intern for them specifically, there are going to be more formal processes that you have to go through, and you can't just necessarily email their HR department and ask to have an internship. But there's a lot of different opportunities and ways to find those volunteer opportunities and internships. Like Khadija said earlier, don't be afraid of unpaid opportunities, because sometimes they'll give you the greatest value in what you're able to do, because there won't be a limit. Most people are willing to take on unpaid interns where they might not always have the capacity to take on a paid intern. And also don't be afraid to use your networks. So those of you who are on the call right now, feel free to ask us during our Q&A about internships that we're aware of. I told some of the other staff members here from Learning Ally today that I'm going to be looking for some interns. So take advantage of every opportunity you have to talk to people about what jobs they might have or who they might know that they can connect you to, because you never know where it's going to lead.
That's great advice. And I know at some of the agencies I've worked at, even if we didn't have if we weren't looking for specific things at that time, if somebody came and proposed an idea that of a skill that they could offer, then we would create that opportunity for them. So keep that in mind. Also, LinkedIn is a great, talking about online resources for searching for opportunities. That's a great outlet there. So.
And Desmond, before we jump to the next question, I'm so sorry. I did forget to give a description of myself. So I am a white female. I have my hair up in a tight bun on the top of my head, and I'm wearing red glasses and a red sweater today. All
right. And since you know, it's so nice outside, I decided to come in my tank top and flip flops. No, actually, I'm wearing khakis and a gray polo shirt, and I am a Black male. All right. So our next question, how can students begin or develop, I think you guys kind of already touched on this, but you know, speaking to particularly these times that we're in with COVID and such, how can students develop their networks in a virtual environment? And let's start with you, Khadija.
Absolutely. So I would say there's a few different tools now that definitely need to be kept in mind. Since we are operating in a virtual world, therefore we need to utilize more online tools more now before than ever. My number one recommendation, and I think again, enough students do not pay attention to this, is to have a LinkedIn profile. So more than 90% of recruiters look at candidates, look for candidates on LinkedIn before calling them in for interviews. So while, let's say they've narrowed down your resume, they're interested in contacting you, they would want to look for you online. So, I mean, I can also slightly touch upon social media presence in general. I know we Google a lot of things. Have we ever tried Googling ourselves and seen what comes up? So let's say type in your first and last name and the school that you go to. I'm assuming you've added that info on your resume, and see what comes up. Is it your Facebook? Is it your Instagram? And what are your privacy settings? So similarly, LinkedIn, for those who have not heard of it before, is your professional online presence. So ideally, when you Google yourself, the first thing that should come up is your LinkedIn profile. I see someone in the chat box has their own podcast as well. That's very cool. Maybe if you Google yourself, hopefully your podcast will be part of the first 2 or 3 results when someone tries to look for you. So again, LinkedIn, I would say, you know, people have a lot of questions about how to go about it. There's so many resources available online, YouTube, just so many online blogs. I would say as a starting point, just use your resume as a guide to start filling in those little form fields on LinkedIn. Also very accessible. They have a mobile app version and also a desktop website, if whatever you're more comfortable using, but I would say both are fairly accessible in terms of a screen reader. Another organization that you can access to build that network is called Lime Connect, L-I-M as in Mary E, connect.com. They are a nonprofit organization who target connecting students with internships and professionals with job opportunities, and they're specifically geared toward the population of people with disabilities. And they operate both in the US and Canada. So I would say they are a good resource as well for students who are interested in the areas of finance, technology, business, but I think it goes a little bit further than that. They also have company partners in media, journalism. So it really, I think it's worth giving it a look. And another way to build your virtual network, I would say, is to visit a virtual career fair. So gone are the days when we all used to gather in a room, hundreds of people, lots of tables, going up to employers and talking to them. Now career fairs have been taking place virtually since last year. So you don't even have to worry about transportation, how to get there, timings, etc. It's as easy as logging on, creating an account, uploading your resume, entering some basic information to create your profile, and joining a career fair and immediately connecting with employers. Me personally, I'm visually impaired myself, and when I used to go to in-person career fairs prior to COVID, I had trouble with things such as seeing the name of the company printed on the table, or even the name tag of the recruiter standing behind the table. What I love about a virtual career fair is that all that information is in front of you. You don't have to, it takes the guesswork out of that, the awkwardness out of that. Some career fairs have a video component and an audio component, but most of them are chat boxes. So I would say, you know, be dressed just in case the recruiter does want to request a video meeting, but for the most part, it's all like texting. There's chat rooms and chat boxes.
Okay, Kerrie.
Yes.
I'm sorry, we're getting the signal.
No, that's good.
But yeah, so also just following up for the next question for you, how has COVID-19 affected kind of the upcoming landscape for volunteering and internships and such, say for this summer? Oh, did we lose you? Maybe.
Sorry, I just needed the permission back for a second to go ahead and unmute. So
Sure.
Before I jump into the COVID question, Desmond, I'd love to just provide a teeny bit little more information on LinkedIn specifically. So it's really important, like Khadija said, to go ahead and create that LinkedIn, use whatever resources are online to move forward in creating your profile. But then the biggest piece is making sure you use it once it is created. So do some research, see what are the best ways to nurture your online network once you start adding people onto that LinkedIn profile. A few really good ways to do that are to post statuses of different things that you're doing. If you got an award at school or in your professional life, or, you know, as an intern, make sure to include that there and highlight it. You know, connect with people that you're meeting online. If your mentor is on here, or even if you want to connect with myself or Khadija, you know, after today, you can use your LinkedIn profile to message us and say, hey, I was on this call and I'd love to be in your network, right? So use your LinkedIn profile to make sure that you have those opportunities to maintain that network once you start adding people onto your profile. And just another great way is on LinkedIn, you can acknowledge your connections a few different ways. So when someone adds you, LinkedIn will give you a notification if they've been promoted at work, if they have a birthday coming up or a milestone at work. So take those opportunities to go ahead and like and congratulate them when those things come up, and make sure, again, you're nurturing that network once you start to build it on LinkedIn. So with regard to the COVID question and how the internship and volunteering landscape has been affected by it, I was mentioning just before this call that for myself as an employer, I have not had any interns this semester, and that's been a really rare thing for me that, you know, it's one of the first semesters that I have not had an intern come on board. So in that way, I've seen an impact from the employer side of people maybe feeling disconnected about how to reach out to employers and find those opportunities. And then from my side, and looking at the job development piece and how our students are finding internships, the process just looks so different this year, right? You're not going in person, you're not meeting someone at a workplace. So for our students, I haven't felt that it's a lot more challenging to find internships, but you have to know the way to do it, right? You have to be able to look for those online opportunities and email people and connect with people through cold calls and emails to reach out and find those opportunities that do still exist out there. So it's a little bit more difficult, but it doesn't mean that the opportunities are fewer.
Great. How about you, Khadija?
Absolutely. So I absolutely agree with Kerrie to say that the opportunities are not fewer. So right now, the students that I'm working with, they're very deep into the internship application process. So just a heads up to those of you who are looking for the summer, a lot of deadlines take place around February and March, if not sooner. So my first thing that I would like to say in terms of observations of internship applications for summer 2021 is that companies who were previously looking for interns on site, maybe they were focused more on recruiting from candidates within their geographic location. They have now opened up those opportunities and those applications up to the entire country. These internships are likely to be taking place virtually, so you'll be working from home. So now they have opened up, again, they're not restricted by that geographic location. And on the flip side, for internship applicants, this means that you can now apply to internship opportunities, not just outside your city, but even outside your state. You don't have to worry about, like if you live in New York or New Jersey, for instance, to just look for internships in those areas, especially if they're fully remote. And just one thing I would say, if you do decide to look for a remote internship and that's your goal, that's totally fine. However, these companies do expect interns to have, most of the time, to have their own technology. So access to your own computer or laptop, generally access to a webcam as well, because most meetings take place over video now, and especially for a remote internship. Access to a stable internet connection, phone. Generally, I know a lot of students have been studying from home, studying virtually too, so hopefully you have access to most of these things already. And of course, most important, access to whatever assistive technology it is that you need.
That's wonderful. This is great information you two have provided so far. Seems like, you know, the times are changing and everybody is just adapting to the changing times. And, you know, we as blind and visually impaired people, we've had lots of experience with adapting. So, you know, it should be, you know, quite easy to fall in place and be flexible. So that's definitely a leg up that you can take into your internships. So also, Khadija, kind of going into the next question, how can students impress people virtually during an interview?
Right. Yep. So video interviews are definitely the new norm now. They were utilized before, but not as much as they are now. Not too many people are called in the office especially for an internship interview, unless, you know, it's only generally for essential workers that interviews take place in person at this time. So I would say, you know, prepare for an interview, for a video interview as you would for an actual one. So do that research as you would for an in-person interview. That part has not changed. I think the most unnerving experience that the students that I'm working with have right now during the interviewing process is pre-recorded video interviews. So now, again, this is a practice that was done before, generally by very large companies, but now it's been being done by a lot of companies, where rather than the first round being a phone call with someone from HR, the first round is now a pre-recorded video interview. So you're given a series of questions, and you have a certain amount of time to record your answer. I think generally it's about 2 to 3 minutes. And you have to submit those answers. So you're not talking to a person, it's a one-way conversation. So I think that's generally the most difficult experience that students are having right now, because again, you're not talking to someone, you're just talking to the camera with your answer. So I would say that's definitely one to look out for. Other than that, whether that be a live video interview or it be pre-recorded, you would prepare like you would for an in-person interview, as I said earlier. So you should always dress professionally. At least your top half should definitely be professional. So even though you might be at home, mindful of what you're wearing, whether that be a tie, button-down suit jacket, formal blouse, you know, the general etiquette for getting ready for an interview. And again, for those of those of us who have trouble with camera angles when being visually impaired, always do a practice run prior to recording yourself or prior to the live video interview. Camera angles are very important. I mean, there's been so many times I've been working with college students who have trouble judging, you know, how close should I hold my phone or how far. You end up seeing somebody's nose or forehead, etc., part of their face. So definitely have the help of a friend or a family member prior to. And lighting and background noise and the background itself is something I would say to be mindful of.
So I agree with what Khadija said, and I want to reiterate that just because your interview is now virtual doesn't mean the expectations have changed. You are still expected to dress professionally, to look professional. You know, maybe we can't see your pajama pants, but at least what we can see of you should be professional, right? By all means. It's really important to have a normal background behind you and to make sure you're in a quiet environment. And of course, be set up and ready to go before that interview takes place. You want to troubleshoot any issues. If you anticipate having technology difficulties, try it out 10 minutes beforehand, if not 20 minutes beforehand, to make sure that you're able to get into that meeting and be on time. You can sit in the waiting room as long as they want you to, but as long as you're there, that's the most important thing, right? I also want to say, if you want to kind of have an extra step up, go ahead and set a virtual background for yourself. It'll show that you have that Zoom knowledge and that professional skill. If you know that it works well and you've done a visual check with a buddy or a roommate or a friend or a neighbor, set up a virtual background and show them that you're competent in changing those and managing those Zoom features, because it is a huge part of the work world now and something that you are going to be expected to know how to manage and to navigate. I've been on a number of virtual interviews where the person is in a noisy cafe, or, you know, there's 1,000 things going on behind them. We all understand that in this COVID world, you might have kids home, you might have brothers and sisters, but do your best to find a quiet spot. So that way it's respectful to the interviewer and they can hear everything you're saying. And furthermore, it won't distract you any further. And the last thing that I wanted to say about impressing people virtually during an interview is still come prepared with your resume. I've sat in on a number of interviews over the last few months where our recruiter and maybe the first manager who interviewed them had the resume, but I hadn't gotten it yet. So I had to ask the interviewee to send me their resume either through the chat on Zoom or through email really quickly. So be prepared and have those documents ready in case that is a request that's made of you. It's just like showing up to an interview in person. You always go with extra copies of your resume. You want to be able to do that as well, even in this virtual world.
Great. One thing I thought about as from the last question or so, somebody had mentioned about the camera angles and such. So Ira, you can actually use free for employment purposes. And I would say, you know, this is definitely geared towards getting employment, future employment. So you could definitely call up an Ira agent and get them to help you to position your camera and other job-related things as well. So that's just a resource. Kerrie and Khadija, just to let you know, in the interest of time, I'm going to kind of combine our last few questions. And so So my next question, and we'll start with you. We'll start with Khadija. So what are some best practices for staying productive while working from home? And then along with that, once you've gotten that internship, you've gone through it. What are some good ways to keep the momentum going after the internship?
Absolutely. So I think just in terms of being productive, whether that be pre, during, or post an internship, just, again, utilize those online resources. I would say skill building is something that doesn't just necessarily have to be restricted to your college studies. So websites such as Coursera, Coursera, offer a lot of free courses. And you can develop skills depending on the field that you're in, whether that be learning a specific software, whether that be advancing your Excel skills, etc. Attend a lot of virtual events. This kind of goes a little bit with networking, but this doesn't necessarily have to be linked to networking. So events pertaining to your field, your interests, even hobbies, just to connect with other people, especially right now during COVID, when some of us might be feeling isolated at home and feel like we're missing that social interaction. It's just a click away to join a virtual meeting at this point. In terms of staying productive during an internship, I would say having a routine is very helpful, and adding some kind of component of staying physically active. I think I've really valued that more than ever, while mostly just sitting at home, is to have a routine to keep yourself kind of like have a mental baseline for yourself as to how your day should be structured, rather than sleeping at 3 a.m. and waking up at 3 p.m. And in terms of a momentum post an internship, I would say, again, stay in touch with the people that you meet during these internships, managers, coworkers. Set up like virtual Zoom coffee sessions or something periodically just to check in with them. Another networking guru gave me this really fantastic tip, is to set up an Excel sheet with all your contacts and put a date next to each person's name of this is the last time you contacted them, whether that be a phone call or email, and kind of just go make that list like a rotation of when that person reaches the bottom of the list, reach out to them again, just date everything so that you know how frequently you're contacting people.
I'm writing that one down. What a great suggestion.
Yeah.
So going along with ways to stay productive at home, I found it's really helpful for myself to designate a specific workspace in your house is super important right now. And to kind of make it your own, right? Put something there that motivates you a little bit, whether it's intrinsically or you just look at it and you kind of seem happy. So I have a picture of my husband on my desk, as well as a fresh plant that I'm trying to will to grow a little bit more. And that's been really helpful in just making it a happier space and wanting to be there for many, many hours throughout the day. With regard to keeping momentum after your internship, just like Khadija said, you want to take the opportunity to say thank you to your supervisors from your internship. That's a small thing that goes a really long way. Just a simple card saying thank you, or even an email expressing your gratitude for having that opportunity. Make sure you're updating your resume and your LinkedIn profile to reflect those opportunities and the projects you've worked on, and stay in touch with the coworkers that you've been able to meet throughout that experience.
Okay. And my final question, Kerrie, is what's one piece of advice you wish you had when you were a college student? Or what, so yeah, we will go with that question.
Perfect. Thanks, Desmond. So the one thing that I wish I had known, I was fielding a few different offers when I graduated, and a few were from nonprofit agencies and a few were from public schools, right? And systems where I was going to be able to be an actual teacher in a classroom. And I decided to kind of follow the money. I was worried about my school loans. I was worried about moving out of my parents' house and living independently. And I let the salaries really kind of dictate where I accepted a position at. So I am encouraging all of you to pursue what you're passionate about and don't necessarily just focus on the money. Money is obviously important, and you need to make sure you're able to support yourself and sustain whatever lifestyle you're going to be living when you leave school. But you you do want to make sure to include what you're passionate about and account for that as much as possible. You know, I ended up taking a different position later down the road, and it was a very big pay cut for me, but in the long run, sometimes that ends up paying off. If you're really passionate about what you do, you might better perform, right? And you might move up a little more quickly. So you can never account for where you're going to be in a few years. So do what makes you happy now. So that is my biggest piece of advice.
I love that, Kerrie. Thank you. Things that I wish I knew while I was looking for an internship and was still in college is, number one, how early I should start applying. So now that I help other students and I'm looking at applications all day, all year long, like for summer 2021, some large companies concluded their recruiting process in August 2020. So now it's really how early you start the process. So if you're looking for something for the summer, you need to start early fall to start applying, especially those large companies. I see Apple in the chat box as well. So, you know, you really need to really be on top of your game in terms of when you start looking for those opportunities. And like I mentioned earlier, February and March, high time for application deadlines. Get on it ASAP if you have not yet. Something else I wish I knew while I was in college is how many opportunities I applied to. So I would apply to like 5 or 6 internships and be like, yeah, I got it down. I'll get something. Little did I know that number needs to be raised up much higher if I want the internship of my choice, where I want to be in a position where I get to say no to some people and yes to my top choice. So I would say, just as a benchmark, apply to about 20 to 25 opportunities. Again, if you want to be in that position of where you get to be in control of who you want to say yes to and who you want to say no to, or do you want to be scraping the bottom of the barrel and just getting whatever you can to put something on your resume. Something else I would like to advise, and again, I wish I knew, is cover letters. So definitely have a friend or your career services office take a look at one for you. Customize those cover letters. Do not leave them cookie cutter. During COVID, now that there's more applicants, especially if you're looking for a job, due to greater unemployment, and recruiters are actually now placing more importance on a cover letter. So in an application, even if it says optional or upload other documents, those other documents could include a transcript, could include a cover letter. And just a general piece of advice, this is something more for those who are focused on the arts, performing arts or digital, is to have an online portfolio. Physical portfolio is great, but it's a little bit hard to manage when we're operating virtually. So whether that be your own YouTube or Instagram or something on LinkedIn, have an online presence to demonstrate your work.
And going along with that, I was even able to maintain, I'm sorry, Desmond. I was even able to maintain an online portfolio for teaching as well. So there are a lot of fields that it's applicable to. I maintained a few lesson plans that were innovative on that website, so that way prospective schools would be able to see them, as well as videos. I had to make sure that the videos I shared either didn't show consumers or the students I was working with, or that I had their permission. But maintaining some of that information online was really helpful in a way to set me apart from the crowd. Fantastic.
Well, Kerrie and Khadija, thank you so much. You guys brought a lot of great information. I'm sure folks in our audience will want to connect with you two beyond this webinar, and hey, you may have some future interns. But thank you so much. We want to have some time for our Q&A, and this was fun. And so I'm going to turn it over to Abigail at this point.
Thanks, Desmond, Kerrie, and Khadija. I too am trying to will a couple plants to stay alive, Kerrie. So that was certainly relatable for me. We do have a couple questions in the chat box. If folks have more that they want to add now, please feel free. We're going to take the next 15 minutes to kind of address Q&A. And if you want to ask a question, with your own voice, you can raise your hand by pressing Alt-Y on a PC or Option-Y on a Mac. And then if you're on the mobile app, it's under the More button near the bottom right. But I'm going to start with some questions that we got in the chat. And Kathleen was curious. She's really interested in interning with big companies like Apple and IBM. And I know, Khadija, you mentioned, starting earlier is better, but do you all have any suggestions for how to really, what are some ways to work towards getting to those big companies? Because we all know it's not going to be just a send an email off and hopefully you land it. So any suggestions on tapping into those larger corporations?
Yeah, absolutely. So first, I would take a look at what listings they have on their website, because like we said earlier, these are bound to be more formal processes for these big companies, and they are also bound to have prerequisites, so things that are required for each of their applicants to have before they even apply to the internship. It might be related to experience, it might be related to years in school. So it's very likely that the first time you go to apply to one of these internships, you might not have all the skills you need just yet. So take a look early, and I mean years early, when you're a freshman in college, to see what am I going to need in a year or 2 years to intern at Apple or to intern at Google? What are they going to be looking for, and what do I have to do now to get that experience? It might be interning with a smaller technology company that's more local to you and gaining other internships first before you can move up there. But I would always recommend taking a look at their website. That's unfortunately not a place where you're going to be able to have a job developer create an opportunity for you. Like I said, those are very formal internships and opportunities. So there are specific processes you have to go through. And Khadija, if you had anything else to add to that.
Yeah, I mean, those are all fantastic tips. I think the only thing I would probably add is, say, you've approached your junior year and you feel like you've been applying a couple of times in a row to get into one of these companies and you haven't been able to. I mean, you did other summer internships, but not necessarily at one of these big companies. I would say also keep a lookout on these, on the websites of these companies for programs for recent grads. So a lot of these large companies also have programs for recent graduates, fresh graduates, that start like right after, in June or July, right after you graduate. However, their application deadlines are during the fall. So again, even if it comes to job search and you're in your senior year of college, and again, you want to really try and get your foot into one of the doors of these companies, is don't just stop at internships, but look at their programs for recent graduates.
And the last thing I want to say on that, Abigail, I'm sorry, is don't preclude yourself from applying to other internships in hopes that you will get this one and only, because it is very likely that you may not. There are thousands, if not more, applicants for those big companies. So don't sell yourself short. Apply to other places as well.
Good advice. Jonathan is curious if you all are familiar with specific employers or companies that you've had positive experiences with helping to land internships for people that are blind or low vision. That's kind of a really broad one, I realize, but
I can start with this. I would say and this is something I tell all the people that we work with, whether it be job seekers or internship seekers, there's no companies or no specific jobs that are just for people who are low vision or blind. To be honest, you'd be surprised how many companies are willing to provide reasonable accommodations. I mean, under the ADA, technically it's their legal responsibility. And now so many companies have diversity recruiting initiatives where they're looking for candidates with disabilities, women of color, LGBTQ. So it's slightly, the landscape is slightly transforming. And I would say, a lot of people do ask me that. How do you tell from the job posting or the internship posting whether they're going to accommodate you? Somebody just asked me that question yesterday. So I would say it's really a matter of applying, and the fact is that you are there for because of the skills and the experience that you have to offer to them and what they can bring to you in terms of your career enrichment, and take it like that as any other applicant would.
I chuckled a little bit when I saw this question, not because it's a silly question, but because there is no straight answer to it, right? I mean, there's tons and tons of employers that I have worked with, and I'm sure Khadija has as well, that have been so receptive and so willing to take on any of our interns or, job applicants. So there's not a great way to tell, especially from a job posting, whether or not it's going to be a good fit. However, for some of the larger companies, this is not a given, but for some of the larger companies, they've now started to institute positions within their human resources department related specifically to diversity, equity, and inclusion. So if they do have that, then you know that diversity, equity, and inclusion is one of their tenets. So, I mean, that might be a signal that they're going to be a little bit more open off the bat. But again, so many positive experiences, you know, and the bad ones really fade out when you think of the number of good experiences we've had with employers. So no straight answer to that, but hopefully most.
This is Desmond. I just want to weigh in on this one as well. I know, like Kerrie and Khadija said, a lot of companies do have initiatives to hire minorities and such, particularly the federal government. I know NASA particularly looks for students with disabilities and such to hire in their programs, and not just special programs for disabled folks, but they want to diversify their workforce and their volunteers and such. So the federal government certainly is somewhere to keep in mind, those agencies. But I think at the end of the day, we have to be ready to market ourselves. Research that job, that internship, and know how you might approach it. Be ready to show off your technology and show that person, that recruiter or whomever, how you would perform the duties of that job. And we really have to be able to market ourselves, not only just as a job or internship seeker, but we have to go that extra mile sometimes. So be prepared.
Great insights. So Cecilia had two questions. The first one I think is more relevant to our whole group, which is, do you all have websites you'd recommend to help with formatting resumes and cover letters?
So I'd love to hear Khadija's opinions on this, but in our program in general, we try to stay away from general templates because they really take away your individuality. They might be a good spot for you to start just to understand the format of a cover letter, but I would stay away from any that are auto-generated like that, that might exist as a website. Again, you might use it as a format to understand what's supposed to be in your cover letter, but I would stay away from using those, internet generated or Microsoft templates.
Yes, I totally agree. People ask me this all the time. Can you recommend a website where I can get a template for my resume? Again, just like Kerrie said, whether that be online samples of resumes or samples of cover letters, again, just like Kerrie said, use them as a guide to understand the sections and the information that needs to go into each of these documents, but do not copy and paste. Yeah, every resume that I've looked at has been different from the last. So there's no cookie cutter, I would say, either for resume or a cover letter. But yes, it is important to understand the content and the points that need to be covered in each of those documents.
Yeah, I would have to, second that advice. Definitely look at a variety of resumes. Maybe you and your classmates or a professional that's already in the field that you want to go into, you can take a look at to get an idea, and look at more than one, and then make it your own based on what's generally accepted.
Great. So I just wanted to confirm Lime Connect is limeconnect.com. If you forget, just searching Lime Connect through Google or any search engine should lead you to that result. There were some questions about how to find internships based on organizations, like organizations that people are already affiliated with, finding internships through there. So I don't know if you all want to speak more to that.
Clarissa, it might be helpful because I did see that that question was from you. I'm not sure what Linus organizations that are, if that's a specific group of organizations that I just might not be familiar with. Feel free if you want to just in the chat, give us a little bit more of a description on what exactly that is, and we might be able to better help. Khadija, there was a lot of questions about specific majors and fields, right, Abigail, about how to find
we have some
internships.
criminal justice, technology. Yep, lots of area specific questions.
So related to that, I would echo what Khadija said earlier. Always start with Google, right? Or companies that you know in your local community that work on these specific things. Social justice, I would literally just start by Googling social justice internships, social justice agencies, and go from there. See what piques your interest, what matches your skill set and the requirements of the position. And what's close to you geographically, if you do have to have an in-person component. But again, like Khadija said, we're not really limited by geography anymore. So you can broaden your search outside of your zip code to look at criminal justice internships nationwide. And I'm sure that you'll get a ton of results just taking a look in Google or at local agencies related to criminal justice or technology.
I would also just interject here too that tapping into instructors that if you're taking criminal justice classes or you have an advisor at school that has a background in that field, they might also be folks you can network with and can put you in touch with opportunities. So networking, I don't think anybody can emphasize how important networking it is and how neighbors, college roommates, parents of your roommates, anybody can really help you. You can really leverage those connections to find opportunities.
Absolutely. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Desmond.
Oh, sorry. I was thinking a good online source for, information about what's the outlook of that job over the next 10 years and the geographic area is the Bureau of Labor Statistics, is BLS.gov. And you can actually find some really detailed information about different careers, just about any career you want to look up on that site.
Absolutely, for sure. I would say just kind of piggybacking off of what Abigail said in terms of staying in touch with your professors, also stay in touch with your classmates. I know right now, if you're taking classes online, you're not really, that physical interaction of, before class starts and after class ends is gone from virtual learning, but that does not mean that you can't connect with your classmates offline outside of class hours. So, it's good to be involved with them as well to understand what opportunities are they applying to and if they can make any recommendations as well, like peer support.
Excellent. So we're nearing the end here. I just want to say that if anyone, we will be sending out a recording of this webinar to all registrants. It'll go up on our YouTube channel. And if you want to get in touch with any of us at the College Success Program, you can email csp@learningally.org. We're on mostly all the social channels, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. And we'd love to hear more from you. Thank you so much, Khadija and Kerrie and Desmond. This has been a really awesome time together, and I appreciate all your insights and wealth of information. Any last thoughts?
I am going to go ahead and give out my email contact information in case anyone is looking for some internships. Like I said, I am looking for some interns. I work in the social services field at a nonprofit organization supporting people with disabilities throughout New Jersey. I'm looking for remote interns, and you can contact me at Hannen, KHANNEN, at familyresourcenetwork.org.
Thanks so much, Kerrie.
Yep, and Abigail, feel free, if you want to email at least my contact information to the participants later on as well. But if you are looking for, if you live in New York State and you're looking for assistance in connecting with an internship, feel free to reach out to Visions as well. I can be reached at Bari, that's KBARI at visionsvcb.org. And good luck to everyone.
Yeah, this is Desmond. Just want to say thank you all for coming out tonight. You're doing a good thing by coming to events like this and learning and connecting and networking. I'm happy to talk with anybody who wants to reach out. Anybody from the CSP program can get a hold of me, but you can email me at djackson@learningally.org.
Excellent. Thank you, everyone. Have a good rest of your evening.
Thank you.